This is Podco Media Networks.
On episode 148 of Confessions of a Marketer, Retail in the Time of Corona. Hi, it's Mark Reed Edwards. Welcome back to Confessions of a Marketer. Michael Mathias is in to discuss the times we find ourselves in and the world of retail. I hope you're staying well during COVID-19, and I wish you all continued health. I do want to repeat my note from last week. If you are hiring marketers, or if you have a compelling story to tell about finding a job in this environment, I'd love to hear from you. Just email me at confessionsof@icloud.com. In the weeks ahead, we have chats planned with Henrik Becker, Ksenia Montan, Dave Woodward, Larry Ludwig, and Naira Perez. Lots more in store. Okay, on to Michael Mathias. In truth, Michael and I spoke at length more than a month ago in the very early days of the COVID crisis. As I listened back to that interview, it was packed with lots of great information, but it really needed a current perspective. So Michael was gracious enough to come back in for another chat. In this discussion, we dig a bit deeper than the headlines and look at the retail landscape, how retailers can market these days, what the world will look like after the crisis ends, and how retailers will retain and gain new customers when the time comes. Let's get to it. Michael, thanks for joining me for this important discussion. Here we are in the middle of this crisis, COVID-19, and there is a lot that you can bring to the table on this. And so welcome. It's good to have you here.
Mark, thanks very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Yeah, and I hope you and your family are all staying healthy.
We are, likewise. Thank you.
So can you share your background on what WearAware is all about?
WearAware is a small digital agency located in the general DC area, national clients, primarily focused on e-commerce space, but helping with a complete full solution package to stand up technology, enable data, enable decisioning and better analytics, and then actually get in market and help our clients produce an outcome.
Yeah. So let's get into the nitty gritty here. Other than the headlines that we read every day, what is the retail landscape like, and what do you think it will look like as we emerge from this COVID-19 crisis?
Boy,
Big question, I know.
$64,000 question or $64 million question, or according to the
Trillion.
FDA and their bill, $359 billion question. Everyone is clearly challenged, and their situation, in some cases, quite unique and quite daunting. No question, plenty of businesses are struggling. I tend to be a realist myself, and you look across the entire portfolio of what's happening, and there will clearly be winners, there will clearly be losers, and then there'll be a bunch of people that will businesses that are actually coming towards a day of reckoning to have an inflection point. And that inflection point would be, have we done enough to survive and thrive? And what do we need to change here quickly from a either customer centricity standpoint, technology standpoint, distribution standpoint, business model standpoint, to actually take advantage of the shift? That's, no one's completely sure how much of the shift in consumer behavior is going to stick and not.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very curious way to think about it. Is think of your own behavior. I try to put these things all in context to my own behavior. What I'm doing now, curbside pickup, ordering more online, is that going to be something that sticks with us or not?
Right. Just like work from home, right?
Just like work from home.
Yeah. And what's interesting, I think, over the last month or so that I've noticed is that you realize how important a brick and mortar store can be to a community. Because obviously I've done a lot of online ordering, but having that presence, the ability to do a drive-by pickup somewhere is really important. It kind of highlights the importance of having an actual physical store in a community.
Yeah, it does. And it's a really curious thing. There was this pretty big trend happening for the last few years, which was buy online, pick up in store.
Yeah.
And I think that gets to the psyche of the consumer, which is just it's a fascinating thing to me, and I think maybe something we could talk about some, which is everyone's been saying that the brick and mortar is dying, and certainly there are plenty of examples pre-COVID where different brick and mortars were in trouble. But you think about what's going to rebound and not rebound, and I fundamentally believe that the retail experience is social,
Yeah.
and that the pent up demand for the social interaction is going to see it's going to move something in some dramatic way when this all sort of settles back down. I saw a note somewhere that someone had sent that it was. I think it's been maybe around on some of the meme sites out there that it used to be like going to the market was just a chore. Now it's like Little House of the Prairie when they all pack up the wagon, they go to town to get supplies.
Yeah.
And it's sort of this different psyche of what that means. And I actually see the retail side. There's so many different perspectives of it, but I look at my own behavior and I do two things right now, right? I either do these very, very quick in and out trips that I'm just there to get something because I have to do it, or I'm going to stock up for some larger period of time.
Right.
And the stuff in the middle seems to have just kind of the recreation part, the social part has all fallen off. And I just as a student of consumer behavior, I don't think that can stay suppressed very long,
Yeah.
especially in the look at me now culture and all the different social networks. They certainly have take up a lot of slack, and the usage of that clearly continues to go up. But it can't fully replace it.
Right.
So I just don't believe that.
Yeah, and that kind of hits on the point that you made earlier. It's an experience, right? It's an experience to go to a really good retailer, whether it's a grocery store or a clothing retailer, whatever it is, and experience that walking into the store and the wonder of it. And I want to go and buy some cold cuts, and and I want to walk through the produce area and all that. That experience is now transformed because either you don't go in the store, you pick up at curbside, or you go in and you know exactly what you want to get and you get the hell out of there.
Right, right.
And there'll be a pent up demand for the kind of community slash experience that you feel when you go shopping.
I believe that. I also believe, to put a finer point on that, the experience side of this, you could define it into a number of different profiles. So let's just take three simple ones. You have a retail profile of necessity.
Yeah.
I think there's a retail profile for being social, and there might be a retail profile for escapism.
Yeah.
For whether you can characterize that in luxury, which is always in the eye of the beholder, whatever that luxury is. But if you start to think about the retail experience, I could easily see those profiles becoming much more extreme, and that the necessity players, which right now are having their day, and well, there's always going to have their day, which is to deliver the best quality product at the lowest, cheapest, easiest price. That doesn't necessarily isn't a fulfilling experience. So then you can see on the other end of the spectrum something that's more escapist,
Mm,
and you really want that white glove treatment. You want that experience that it's very unique. And where retail was struggling in the past, in my opinion, was in some cases different. The same brand was trying to do the same both of those things at once,
right.
and with mixed results. And I could point to some things where I think that didn't go as well, with especially luxury retailers trying to go down market and make things that are more commodity based and things like that. I believe that coming out of this, there's going to be even a higher differentiation, and you just can't be everything to everybody.
Yeah. And that's good for the consumer, isn't it?
If well, does the consumer know what's good for them?
But I'm just saying, so if you define exactly who you are and exactly what it is that you do for a consumer, the consumer can choose far more easily than a retailer that tries to be all things to all people. I guess that's my point.
I would generally agree with that. Now, that is assuming that you have done your work as a retailer to provide the proper information, education, the right incentives, the right seduction to come and transact business in your environment, whether it's digital or other, brick or mortar or otherwise. So I guess it sort of goes back to where you fundamentally start with the consumer psyche, and is that are consumers, how educated are they, and how specific are they? Do they know what they need or not? Versus the need versus want, I guess, to boil that all down.
Right.
And I just believe that from the retailer side, you don't get to have it both ways. You do
Mm,
have to choose, and you have to sort of have faith that the consumer is going to figure out, not overtly necessarily, but of what experience they're looking to have. Like, I don't necessarily want to have other than a transactional experience with my dry cleaner,
right.
but you start to go up the different types of things that you could be transacting. Do I want to have an experience with my the butcher at my local market? Well, maybe I do, because that is something that's more escapist from is I do like to cook and I do like to enjoy those things where others might not, which I think, if you'll indulge me for a second, is another thing that's going to happen with the state of retail when this comes out. I believe that there will be more and more hybrid businesses out there that are looking for multiple ways to get their product to market. So a great example is grocery store. And grocery store, traditionally, you've seen it evolve for the last decade plus, but a grocery store has been the place you go buy your supplies and take home. Then they start to have pop-up stores, whether they're Starbucks inside there or prepared food or deli counters. Now you've got curbside pickup. Then you have delivery. Now there might be, you go to Whole Foods, you can get your prepared food and you can eat at Whole Foods. I wouldn't say it's really super like a friendly restaurant,
Right.
but not hard to start to see the extension of how many different places that chicken breast could show up.
Yeah. And a lot of retailers, food retailers do the prepared food. So the natural extension is to put a few chairs and tables out and let you just stay there and eat.
I can't put my finger on exactly what the other models will be, but I certainly see a need to expand the distribution of whatever your core product is dramatically and find other uses for it and other environments to engage with it.
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of messages since the crisis started from different restaurants, retailers, and so forth, expressing concern and saying, "Yeah, we're on top of it. We understand what's going on, and we care about you, our customers, and our employees, and all that." And that's one level of marketing, just saying you're generally aware of what's going on. But how can retailers market during these times, or should they? Should they be marketing to customers? I get stuff from LL Bean. They seem kind of a little bit separate. They're primarily online business for me. There are stores, but I interact with them, online. How can a retailer with a storefront market during these times if they're open, a limited number of hours, if maybe they do curbside pickup, whatever it is? What are the rules that you would think that they should follow?
I think there are a couple real serious rules to pay attention to. The first and foremost is to come from the heart, come from a place of care.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you can't stand up and read this to your mother or your grandmother or, someone like that, whatever, when I say read this, your advertisement, your marketing, your email, whatever that is, and would they look at you and say, come on? Or would they say, yeah, that's a nice message? And I
Yeah.
think more than ever, at least in my recent experience, that coming from the heart and being part of the community and trying to make a human connection is really important.
Yeah.
So I would say be human and come from the heart first. I don't know. I live in a semi-rural part of the outskirts of DC area, and we spend more time out walking now because gyms are closed and our normal
Right.
routines are closed. And I've met more neighbors and been waved to more people than I have in the last 3 weeks than I have in 3 years.
Yeah.
And everyone has been very friendly back. I think that need for connection is so important, and I see that as a critical pillar, especially for the smaller stores and the community-based stores. It's that human piece. And again, yeah, people need to go to the big box stores to get some things that are efficient and they're commodities and they are what they are, and there's no other way to get them right now. But for the smaller brick and mortars to survive, or even the mid-size, it's got to be based upon that trust that I'm going to be here for you. And that probably goes to the second piece of advice or perspective that I would give, which is around reliability.
Right.
And the fact that I know that my local tavern here, which I used to love to go sit at the end of the bar and have a soda pop or adult equivalent, I know that they can't do that right now, but I know that they're there and they're part of the community, and they've been very reliable on saying exactly what they can and can't do. And they've
Yeah.
been very forthcoming with information about when they're open and what they can serve and how you do a curbside pickup and what they can do for your family. And so just that clear knowledge and understanding of what's going on, it's very easy to overlook. It's very easy to just think, oh, everyone knows, but to be just painfully clear. And then, I used the word community before. I think that third thing for me is to align with the community. And I saw some really interesting, even at the big box level, there was some stories of Albertsons. It's a grocery chain on I guess mostly West Coast, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Hy-Vee, Publix. They have been working with some of the local restaurants and local bars to where people are laid off or furloughed. They're trying to have a direct recruiting line with them, being part of the community and keeping people who have some experience and are in the neighborhood employed, whether it's temporarily or not, but to really embed themselves in the community. And of course, they've got a bigger footprint and they can do those things. But for them doing that, that's for me, that says something. And you think about the loyalty they're going to get from employees, that they were able to get jobs where they otherwise couldn't, and then how that trickles out through, whether it's downtown Manhattan or rural Maryland. That's impactful.
Yeah. You really see what companies and people are made of at times like these, don't you?
You do. It certainly helps to have deep pockets.
Yeah.
So I'm
You're
not
made of money. Yeah.
I'm not dismissing that at all, because some of these things all sound beautiful, but then reality sets in, and let's hope that some of the government assistance programs land properly and are able to aid people that most need it, and keep these things going. And I guess we'll see, but it certainly helps.
Yeah. So I want to paint a picture of life on the other side of this crisis, whether it's 3 months from now, 18 months from now, whatever the length of time is that this crisis takes to abate. How can retailers retain and gain new customers? Maybe you start now, though. Maybe it's not something that happens on the other side. I leave that to you.
It's tricky. It's tricky as far as starting right now. You certainly do not want to be tone deaf to the tragedy that's going on out there and the individual suffering that different families and communities are feeling.
Yeah.
There was a beer company, which I'll remain nameless. I'm sure it's not wouldn't be hard to find, but they when it first started, they started to run an ad, which then quickly got pulled, which was we're the official work from home beer.
Yeah. Right.
And while part of me, my sarcastic and cynical self, and I get that, and that does strike one chord with me, but it strikes so many other chords that are just insensitive and wrong message, wrong time. There might be the right target there somewhere, but I would say, is that really the target that they would want long term anyway? So, everything starts with data for me. And it all starts with fundamentals, and it has to be then put in context with the social situation at play. So I do think that the basics of understanding who your best customers are
Yeah.
and being able to have an agree on that, which is a very tricky thing to agree on too. If you think about the example I use all the time, do you want a customer that spends? I'll use a smaller example than I usually do. A customer that spends $10 a month every month, or do you want a customer that spends $120 once a year?
Yeah.
And either answer could be totally appropriate and right for your business. But the real trick is, does your business overall actually agree on that? So, there's a fundamental step back to say, no better time than now. Who really is our best customer? And then how do we put ourselves in the best light to make sure that they know that we're here for them. So I think that the data and the analysis and the understanding of all things around targeting and all things around really what a lifetime value could be for a client, those things haven't changed. The messaging and the context and the frequency, those things are going to be very, very situational, and it's very easy to make a misstep and be perceived to be tone deaf. I just again look at my own experience, and like you said, getting dozens of messages from different companies that are releasing a statement on COVID, and where we've done our own, and as you expect us to we've done webinars, we've done some different things, how to keep marketing during these times. So we're trying to be very active. Some of the ones that I get, it feels like they're checking a box, and that they needed to do it. The competition did it. They feel like they should do something, and I'm not saying it's not true, but what I am saying is that doesn't necessarily resonate. It doesn't make a connection. And it's a very difficult thing to do. And then some of them for me make a great connection. And as I am taking the time to read them all, because I'm curious, as I'm in the industry.
Yeah.
And some of them I think are extremely thoughtful and really are going out of their way to put themselves at my disposal to see what they can do for me. And you know what? Short term, it might be expensive, but long term, there are definitely brands that I see, that I work with, and that I am a consumer of, that I will become more loyal to. No question.
Yeah. But some of them do feel like compliance emails,
They do.
the
They do.
perfunctory. And I guess, you can't fault someone for trying to do something right. Maybe they just don't set the right tone.
No, it's. I was even hesitant to say that because it's very difficult, and the tone, and
Yeah.
it is very difficult.
Yeah. Well, it's a complex world, and I really appreciate you joining me to put things in perspective, and I really appreciate your insight.
My absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Mike. All right. Confessions of a Marketer is a trademark of Podco Media Networks, and this episode is copyright 2020. I'm Mark Reed Edwards. Stay healthy, and see you next time.